All right, guys, let's do a beach tumbler. I love these. I love these designs. My son parked his bike by my spray paint booth, and I don't feel like moving it, so we're gonna do it right here. I have my stainless tumbler. I have a white spray paint, and I have some gold. And I'm gonna start off just giving it a white base because we're gonna ombre some paints on here as a guide, and I want to make sure all of my paints and glitter really shine on there. So we're gonna get some white on there. Oh, what's that? Something stuck. All right. I'm not worried about that. It's gonna have so much paint layers over it, that's not even gonna matter. So get that piece off. And then I have my gold, and we're going to give us a line at the bottom so that we know where to have these paints fall, our whole ombre. This will kind of base where everything lands. See the spray paint going all over my phone? That's why I need my boot. My kid needs to move his bike. Okay. If I would have let that dry a little, I wouldn't have had to go with so much gold. But I'm impatient, so we just layered it like that. Let me go ahead and touch up a little of this white. Okay. Oh, that piece. There we go. All right, we're gonna let this sit and dry completely. This has to be dry for this next step. I love doing this. All right, so the colors I have Admiral Blue. This is just a cheap old paint. Nothing special with these. This one is a metallic blue. I don't have another good color blue, and I love the way this one looks, so I'm grabbing this. You could just use a regular blue, just a regular cheap old 99-cent blue. And then I have this really pretty Ocean Breeze. This metallic blue color is called Blue Sapphire. All of these were from either Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's. And then I have this white, titanium white. I don't know, it brightens it up. You'll see, it brightens it up. It's super, super pretty. We're gonna go with this navy and put a little drop. I don't know what word I was trying to say there, right on the top, and work that in. Again, this is just a guide. This does not have to be perfect. You are not looking for a flawless ombre right here. You're just putting these colors down to give your glitters some depth, and also as a guide for where to drop these glitters whenever you do this ombre. Sorry guys, my throat. I found a super, super easy way to do an ombre that's just about foolproof. So I'm gonna show you guys, because it's awesome. Let me wipe some of that blue off. All right, now we're gonna go, I wiped just a little bit of it off because I had a ton on there. I'm gonna drop in this next brighter blue and give it just a soft little transition. I'm wiping kind of off that navy first. If you're kind of just getting started or unsure about this process, you can go ahead and start with the white first. It's easier to make it, to bring the white up into these other colors. So to keep it, how do I say this? Just keep working it through, hold on. Just keep working this color through. You can see that it's starting to blend right here. I did this front line first, and now I'm bringing it up right here. All right, if you're worried about having the bottom go too dark, then you can start with your lighter colors first, and it may be easier for you. I just like going from the dark down, because it kind of, like I said, this is my guide, and it gives me an idea of where I want these colors to go. All right, so you see that I dropped it at the bottom. It's blue right there, and then I worked that color in right here to the top. And we're not finished. It's going to get more. So now I'm going to drop in this Ocean Breeze. By the time everything lightens up, it's going to give a really good mix of color. So we're going to wipe that just in this straight line. Pull it back this way, keep it bright. And once that gets all the way around, then you can start going back and forth over that line to help bring these colors in. Don't bring the blue from right here down any further, because we need that to go lighter. But we do want to bring this color up, this Ocean Breeze up. That way it kind of gives these top colors some of that kind of oceany blue, and then it helps that fade. And you can see it as the colors work in. It kind of helps it fade up. So then we're going to keep going. And we're going to keep bringing this all the way up so that we straighten out that navy, because you see how that navy is kind of harsh. If we get in right now with all of these paints on here, it kind of blends. One of the things about ombre is how they look. If you notice that the colors just don't jump. It's not just two colors. It's a variety of colors to make an ombre that really has it fade nice. you hardly ever see a really, really, really good ombre with 2 colors. Well, they have some. I shouldn't even say that. There's a lot of great ombres out there with just 2 colors, but whenever you're doing the beach ones, it's kind of like a gradual fade of colors throughout the ocean. It doesn't just jump from, like, you know, the deep ocean blue to white sand. It has all of these different colors that really bring it down. All right, so now we have that. I'm gonna switch paintbrushes because I have that navy up there and I don't want to introduce that to this color. So we're switching paintbrushes and I'm using my white. I'm gonna do my white in a few strips and I'm not gonna touch any colors right now. I want this white to stay super bright because this is where my white glitter is gonna go. So we're gonna keep wiping this in. Again, this is just a guide. I'm not worried about it getting into this gold. It's gonna have so many layers of glitter over this, it doesn't even matter. All right, so keep wiping this in, and then we're gonna start bringing it up, and we're gonna introduce it to this Ocean Breeze color. And we're just going a little at a time. We're just bringing it through there. And that's where it picks up that line. If you see a spot where it's kind of a puddle, just wipe it across and grab it, and then just start going back and forth. Whenever I'm first dropping the color on, I pick it up with this side and I don't touch it down with the back. Right now, since I have it picked up and I'm starting to blend it in, I'm picking up with both sides of the brush. Now, as I have this color on here, I'm gonna work this down so that it lightens up this white. Oh, well, it kind of ocean breezes that white a little. And you can see how it's like really starting to fade super, super light. And then I'm gonna bring it up, make sure it's blended there, and then I'll bring it up. I'm gonna wipe off a little of that paint. That way it doesn't go super, super crazy right here. And then we're going straight on this line right here and put this back. And this is a really, really good design. If you need a guy's beach tumbler and he doesn't want glitter, you could just do this right here, leave this part, and then drop inks over it, and it will look so cool. I've done a few like that when I had to do like a his and hers beach. I stopped at this step with my ombre, and then I went ahead and added on my inks and stuff. I'll show you in 1 second because I have one sitting close to me. All right, so now I'm just blending these down, making sure that ombre goes, and any spots where it looks like rough lines, I'm blending that in. Kind of stay in the same section. If you're doing up here, don't jump to the bottom. Keep these colors around the same section, that way your ombre stays consistent all the way through. If you were to jump from that navy down to the white, you're bringing that navy into a color that it doesn't belong, and you'll kind of mess it up. So work that in. I have this one spot right here. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect, guys. This, like, we're not trying to get this perfect. We're just getting this to where we like it. That way our glitters don't show through. If you're using any transparent glitters for this stuff, then just be careful and make sure you don't have any really harsh lines going down. But for the most part, we're going to have glitters, a bunch of different ones. I think I have like 7 pulled, and it's gonna be really pretty. All right, that is it for this ombre. And this is what I was talking about for a guy's beach tumbler. I just did the paint ombre on the back, and I dropped my inks on top, my inks and micas, and my gold, and that was all it was. I just left it perfect like that, and it was just came out as a really good guy's beach ombre. Sitting by the window like for a few years now, so I'll probably have to do something with it at some point. But that's where we're gonna stop and leave this. This has to dry completely. We are using Mr. Nola's Speed Dry Epoxy. I love doing everything with this stuff because it sets so quick. I can keep going with my next steps and really not have to wait a ton of time, even if it's somewhere along the lines of a coat that would need some, need to be sanded and then more stuff. You can still do that within 2 to 3 hours, depending on your workspace. All right, we have this down. We're gonna go ahead and work this epoxy all the way around. Get my heat gun to help it kind of move. This epoxy loves heat and it loves to be worked around, so don't be afraid to really get your heat gun on there and move this epoxy through. You don't need a ton for this step. It is just to kind of anchor down some of your glitters, but I put a healthy amount because I put so many layers. I want to make sure they really get in there. So we're going to make sure it's all the way around. And then I usually just take my gloved finger and make sure it's all the way through. Okay, time to ombre. I always start at the bottom and get my gold down. That way I know how far to bring the rest of my colors. This is a gold mix that I put together. It's Aria, number 9, Cordeila, and Egret. It kind of gives a good, fun mix of golds, and Egret really gives like this, this sparkle that will throw off. Almost like an opal, but it pulls in a bunch of different colors. It's super, super pretty. They're all from Mr. Nola's Glitter. All the glitters, everything I always use is from Nola's Glitter. Almost like I don't have to say that anymore. All right, so I'm going close right here, and then I'm pulling it up so that some of that glitter will fall a little higher. And I am barely letting it fall out of my shaker. And I want to make sure I get a solid line all the way across, and a little bit that goes up. Tap off all that extra. We put this back into our little bucket, and then we're going to go in with our white. The white that we're using is Egret. This is in the Zodiac collection. Some people find it a little hard to find. It is hiding in the Zodiac collection, and that collection is just amazing. So we're going to go ahead and take that and sprinkle it. I'm aiming at this part of the line right here. That way it falls down. Like, I'm not right on the line, I'm angling it just under that gold line. That way it falls down and plays with the gold, but it also kind of makes its way upward too, and falls higher. All right, knock that off. I'm gonna put that back, and then we're gonna take Egret again. We're gonna hold it a little higher this time and sprinkle away. Whenever you hold it higher, you get more of the colors fanning out. So whenever you're doing your ombres, keep that in mind. The higher you hold it, the more those colors are gonna kind of fan out around your tumbler. So I'm sprinkling this still on that white line. That way it falls a little upward and ties in kind of higher. Knock that off. This is still gonna have layers of paint and mica over it. So if you don't get this ombre perfect, it's okay. It's definitely okay, so don't stress out over that. For the two glitters we're doing for this top, I have NOPD and I have Royal. We're gonna go in with Royal first. No, we're not. We're gonna go in with NOPD first. And I'm gonna go straight across this way. I'm going straight across, giving myself a nice, good line to kind of establish that darker area. And I'm going to equal out where that line falls. So try to make it straightish. And then after that's on, I'm going to turn it on an angle, and I'm going to drop my glitters this way. This will help it to fan out, and I'm also not going to be so close. I'm going to pull it up so I have a better kind of ombre of this color going down. So we're going to just shake it consistently, let it fall all the way down. Let that roll around. Don't chase your cup. Just stay in one spot and keep that angle. Okay. Knock off the extra. And we're going to do that exact same thing with Royal. We're going to go close to under that line, right where that line ends. We're going to go right there. Go straight across. And then after that line meets up and you have it straight across, take your shaker, take your shaker, turn it on an angle, and then angle this. What that will do is it will drop some of these glitters up into that top navy. It'll also pull it a little lower, kind of a little lower than the other navy fell. That way it will start to do the ombre for you. All right, knock that off. And then we're going to go in with Stompers. Stompers is really, really pretty. It's like a, I don't know, like a turquoise teal. It's so pretty. Same thing. So go across. We're going sideways. And every time we do this, we're just dropping that next line a little lower. So we're going sideways, and then when we see where we started, go an angle, hold it higher, and sprinkle it so that it falls throughout the top colors and it works its way to the bottom too. So now at this point, we're shaking a little longer. Like we're holding up and we're shaking that angle a little longer. Okay, that's all the way around. Now we're going to bring in Lakeview. This is just a rough draft. We can go through and add colors and edit things in a minute. Right now we're just kind of getting these colors down. So Lakeview, same thing. We're going to go straight across. And we're going right where that color starts to end. So straight across. This one's so pretty. It pulls in like this teal, but like it has like this flash of green. It is my favorite. Anytime someone asks for teal or turquoise, I grab Lakeview. They do have a Lakeview Junior that is a stunner. All right, so that's all the way. And you can almost see where that line is. So now I'm going to pull this up, and I'm sprinkling it up more so that it falls up into those other colors and ties this color in all the way. And it also brings it down so that it will do the ombre for my next glitter that I'm dropping. And whenever you're dropping these colors to see where that color lands, you're watching right here. If you watch where you don't have glitter yet, that will help you know where you tied in those colors. All right, so that one. And then we're going in with Press Street Station. Guys, I cannot explain Press Street Station to you. It is so pretty. It is so, so pretty. All right, so same thing. I'm gonna go in that open space right there. Go straight across. So it gets all the way around, and you can see, you'll see a little spot where your glitters are. And then we're going to take this one, and this one we're going to make sure we drop everywhere. It is such a pretty color. So we're going to drop it, actually, you know what, we're going to drop it till about right here. I forgot that I have Jesuit that I recently fell in love with that we need to add to this. So I'm dropping this kind of where this Lakeview, all the way down to parts of the gold. All right, and now we're gonna grab Jesuit. I love Jesuit. I use it for the first time in a beach, kind of a beach inspired, a tumbler the other day, and it was just so pretty. So this one, I wanna add this to this area to kind of brighten it up, but it's a fine glitter, and if I go too close, it's going to just, it's gonna go bad. It's gonna go bad. So we're gonna hold it up. Actually, should I use this? Maybe I should use this one. I'm going to use this one. This is Jesuit and, what did I mix? Jesuit and Press Street Station mixed together. I'm going to use that. And I'm going to drop this from about right here to right here. And I'm going on an angle that way. And I'm, like, if you can see the direction, like I'm tilting my cup up. I'm barely even, I'm not even dumping it over. I'm just shaking it and let whatever falls out kind of do its own thing. What this will do is kind of fill in some of these gaps of these other colors. Okay, I have that all the way around, I think. Tap some of that off. And then I'm gonna drop Lakeview over top one more time. That epoxy that I put on was fairly thick. So I'm gonna drop Lakeview on one more time because it is a thicker glitter and I want it to kind of brighten up this section and also pick up some of this. So we're going across, hold it high. Just let it sprinkle everywhere. Whatever doesn't want to stay is going to fall off. So we're really not doing a ton to try to get this onto the tumbler. It will fall where it needs to stick. Or it will stick where it needs to go. I don't know. All right, there. And then one more thing we'll do, and I'm going to have to make some noise because I didn't have any parchment paper ripped up. But I'm going to take my parchment paper and I'm going to lay down this glitter. I don't want to have to fight with this later. I don't want to have to fight with this later when I'm doing epoxy, so we're going to lay this glitter down. Let me show you. Okay, this is a really good example. So right there, I had a lot of glitter on that part. So what happened was that whenever I pushed this parchment paper, where that epoxy was kind of soaked through, it lifted up. It's not a big deal if that happens. You didn't ruin anything. Just take your glitter and drop down more in that section. So drop down a little more right there. And like I said, that's going to get some stuff over it. It's going to have inks and micas and a whole bunch of fun waves and stuff. So you won't even be able to see that one little spot. All right, then something else I want to do right around here. I'm going to smush this in, and I want to add a little more of Egret. The cuts that are in Egret almost has like this bubbly look to it whenever it's laying behind the inks and micas. And it's really pretty. So I'm going to drop Egret from here to here and kind of just tie in and leave like a little sparkle on top. There's a chance that a lot of it won't stay because that epoxy, the other glitter's laid down to it, but if any spots are kind of soaked through or just a little bit wet from the epoxy, you'll grab it and it will just leave it perfect. Okay. We're going to go one more time with our parchment paper, but what we're doing now is we're going to use the other side of our parchment paper because we don't want, if any of this is tacky, we don't want to grab it. So we're using the other side of our parchment paper and do the same thing and just tap it all down. Make sure I get that spot I added at the top. Okay, we're going to let this sit for a bit and then we will be back with epoxy. All right, we're going to give this a little burst of clear spray paint. All we're doing is getting these glitters to set in place. The epoxy is holding them there, but every once in a while, some of the glitters that are on the top will want to travel around with the epoxy that we're going to be putting on. So we're going to make sure they're going to stay put. And that's about all I do. Let this dry completely before we go on with epoxy. We are going on with our first layer of epoxy over the glitter. And I like to let this layer cure before I do the next part of my waves and everything. My reasoning behind that is that I use speed dry for this, and I'm aggressive, and I know that sometimes when I'm working kind of fast and getting these waves to go, I have a tendency to dig into the glitter and kind of loosen it up, and it will float around into my waves, and I don't want that. I want all of my glitter to stay in my glitter layer and everything else to just kind of float above it. So we're going to get this on to let this cure, and then we will come back with our inks and micas. I have my torch. I'm going to make sure I pop any bubbles. I'm just working this through to make sure everything's covered. This does not have to be super thick. We're not trying to not have any bumps here. We're just making sure that everything is down where it's going to want to stay put and not slide around when we're working on it. So that's it. That's as quick as that goes. Let this go and we'll be back later. This first coat of epoxy is on here, and now is the point where I go through and trim up and clean off my bottom. I always do this after the first layer of epoxy because if you wait any longer than this, it gets too thick. And it's super difficult. So the cup edging tool from Wicked Shimmer, I love this thing. I have it down to the lowest setting, and I wedged a paring knife under it to give a little more stability to my blade. I've always said I'm super aggressive, and the way that I push on this, the blade tends to wobble, but with a paring knife under there, it sits still. And I know I'm blocking it with my hand, but I'm trying to grip this. All right, so I'm gonna go run it around in circles, and then you'll hear it start to hit the metal. Running it around, you'll hear it kind of crack off and break. And that should be the point where you can just peel it away. I like to do this the same day that I do my epoxy. It's a lot easier than letting your epoxy sit and really start to set up. And I had to let it sit overnight, so a little more elbow grease than normal. And then I'm going to pop this piece off. And like I said, I just do this because I don't do the bottom of my tumblers. I leave it nice and clean and no epoxy around the edges. The bottom of it, I just don't want to fight with it anymore. And we're going to take that piece out. What I'll also do right now is grab some acetone and a napkin, and then I'll go through and clean this up. This little pump bottle I got from Sally's. I always forget to tell you guys, and that's one of the questions I've been getting a lot lately. Got them from Sally's, and they work really, really well. I've had that thing for 2 or 3 years, I think. Like, it's been lasting forever. All right, so that's all cleaned up at the bottom, and then we're gonna go ahead and clean off the top. I'll show you real quick how I trim this away, but for the top, I use my Dremel and flap wheel. I have a video on that I'll link in the descriptions, and it covers every use of sandpaper possible, and you could just skip through and see where it says in there, but we're just gonna go through and get that cleaned up real good. That way we don't have to fight with anything being too thick as we continue on with this design. I have my epoxy mixed up, and I have 60 mLs total, so roughly 30 mLs of part A and 30 mLs of part B. The colors I'm using from Mica's, I'm gonna go ahead and section these out real quick. This is Moonshadow from Woodies Goodies. It's like a really pretty, most deep navy. I'm going to go with a blue. You can get these from Mr. Nola's Glitter. This is called True Blue. Put a bit of that in. Then one more cup I have is going to be this really pretty teal. And this one is called Blue Green. Well, teal, turquoise, blue green. All right, I have those in. I'm not going to pour any epoxy in that yet, because what I do need to do is put clear epoxy on this tumbler first before I get my hands all messy. Let me take all of these lids off, because this is where I kind of have to start working fast. I'm using speed dry for this because I like when my colors go and I lay them down in a very certain way, and I want them to stay that way. And I find that speed dry has them moving around a lot less. So I really end up getting the effect that I want. Sorry, I had to run away from it. Okay, so we're gonna put our clear right on this tumbler, just plain epoxy. What this does is it gives the inks and micas a base to flow around on. If you wanted to do kind of a guy's tumbler and you don't want those colors to mix and get all muddy, then don't put down a layer of epoxy. Just put your colored inks and micas right over a dry tumbler, and you get this really, really cool look where they'll stay separate unless you touch them together. And I have a video on that, a shark tumbler that I did that explains that exact step, and it looks really cool. All right, so make sure this thin layer's on here. We don't need a lot, like I said, just a base. We're gonna go ahead and section out these colors. I have a lot mixed up. I know this is gonna end up being too much, but for this step, it's better to have too much than too little. You don't wanna run out. If you have any keychain molds, you can easily just layer these in a keychain mold and make a really pretty beach design. All right, so I'll put each one of these in here. And what's left in this bucket will be white. Start mixing this in. We don't need a ton of white, unless you're wanting to do waves kind of all throughout the tumbler. If you want to do like a really wavy look, then put more white. If you want it to look like a roughed up ocean, which will look really cool if you just spread it all the way through. I've done a few like that, and it like an angry, an angry ocean, and it looked so pretty. But we're not doing that with this one. And then this will get white. This is just white Alumilite epoxy dye, and this is just for the waves. Come on. You know what, before that drips in, let me add a little more to here. Okay. And a little goes a long way with this white, so don't overdo it. All right, mix that in. We're gonna lay our waves on first. And I'm gonna use this actual little popsicle stick to apply it, and I'm just gonna kind of squiggle it through. Every motion that I do with dropping these on is just going to be kind of this little squiggly motion. And I don't want this to be too much, so I'm going to scoop up some of the white that I laid down and kind of spread that out. All right, I have that down. And I'm gonna start with my top colors. I'm going the navy blue, and I wanna put the navy blue till about a quarter of the way through. Definitely get it on that top. And then drop it over. And like I said, I'm kind of putting like swishy movements on here. This doesn't have to be covered in this. This is just to give it a little more fun because we're still gonna have inks on top of this. And I'm not gonna add any heat until later. I don't want anything to move around right now. I wanna be able to control how it flows. So right now I'm just laying it down. We're gonna go in with our blue. Put this blue through here. Make sure you bring it up to the top. That way all of these colors tie in. And then we're gonna add in this turquoise color. So pretty. It really just gives another added layer of depth to this. So I'm putting this through here, still kind of just wiggling it in, and then I'm going to bring it slightly into the white. Not a ton, just wiggle a little bit of it through here. That way it'll kind of start looking like the water and the waves kind of mixed up a little. And it's tossing around some of that blue. All right, then we're done with that. So now we're gonna grab our inks. Let me get some rubbing alcohol. I always keep a baby wipe with rubbing alcohol on it so I can kind of wipe off what starts to get stuck to this little silicone tool. So I have denim that I'm gonna drop right here on this navy. And I have the pointy, not pointy, but the flat side of this. I'm gonna drop it on and then squiggle it in. And this is where I said that little patch of glitter that we had to add, it didn't even matter because you can't end up seeing it. So just keep squiggling that in, and this is kind of mixing up the inks and the micas. Bring it down a little more. And then we're gonna switch to our blue. The blue we have right now is Sapphire Blue that we're going on with next. We're doing the same thing. Put a little drop, wiggle that in, and spread it higher onto your tumbler and lower. Just one little drop at a time. If you're using speed dry for this and you feel like it's starting to set up on you, just hit it with some heat and that will spread it out. For this color, I really like mermaid, but I don't have any mermaid, so I'm using pool. Remind me to buy mermaid, someone. I ran out, I think on a live or something. I was like, I need to get this, I need to order this, and I completely forgot until just now. So the same thing, I'm gonna put this through. I'm gonna tie this in with the white also. And then we're gonna bring all that and tie that in up here. We're gonna hit it with heat because I can see some of that starting to wanna sit still. The more heat you put, the more these inks will want to kind of move around on you. So just be mindful, if you have these inks where you really want it, don't put a lot of heat. Just kind of let it be. But I'm gonna keep kind of putting this through and making sure that I don't have any areas that aren't quite the color I need it to be. And I'm also gonna bring this color up some, because it will tie in and make this really pretty darker teal towards the top. The other good thing with kind of taking your inks and kind of doing that as you're dropping them is that your inks will want to travel along some of those lines so it won't fall into a big flat blob, you know, like a big inky splatter. It'll kind of fall into some of those. All right, so we're going through here. Make sure all this is tied in. And then we're going to work on the water. Make sure that color doesn't want to sit too flat. All right, so now what we're gonna do, I have my white that's missing. You know what, let's do gold first so our white stays vibrant. We're gonna have our gold. And we don't want a lot of gold. Gold, the way that it falls on, it tends to be a little opaque in some areas, and it will take over and kind of cover up that glitter. So we don't want a lot like that. We don't want a lot like that. Wipe it off. And then the same thing, take it and squiggle it through. The good thing about this is that with this silicone tool, the epoxy won't stick to it. So if you have a spot like this that went out of control, just remove it. Just scoop it up and wipe it on your little alcohol rag. You can just remove it. That's funny. I love when things go wrong so I can actually show you and be like, uh-oh, fix that. Remove. All right, and then we're gonna add our waves. So I have this wiped off. I'm gonna get my white, drop it onto this flat part, and then place that in areas and kind of do the same thing. Do not drip this onto your little tool over the tumbler, because if a drop falls off where you don't want it to, you'll have a big old drip somewhere random. So put that down, and then we can kind of pull it through. We're going around the top, because I don't want that gold to travel up too much. But just tap it on, and then kind of make like wavy motions with your hand, and that will help stretch it out. And then once that gets to where we like it, I'm going to go lower. I'm going to bring that down into the gold and do the same thing. Drop it and then spread it out. All right, wipe that off. And then what I like to do for this part is I go through, because some of that does get a little thick, and I'll take, let me heat this up so it still wants to work with me. Give it a little heat. And then I will take my little silicone tool and go through kind of on an angle and make it kind of sideways and just kind of remove some of what I put on. What that does is it'll allow little peaks of glitter to come through and stretch out some of those waves, and it really looks cool. I do see a spot. Let me see if I can get some of this blue to drip down if it's not too late. So a few spots where it looked like that blue just ended, and I don't like that. You can tell when it's starting to set up because it kind of pulls and really leaves a mark in some areas. Okay, yep, we're past the time to play with it. All right, let me heat this up. Drop my ink on the floor. One last attempt to get these bubbles out. Usually messing around with this, it gets everything flowing and I don't have to worry about bubbles. I did have a little drop right there, so let's remove that. We'll fix it when it comes back around. And that's why we don't drip right on top of the tumbler. We go off to the side. But wait for that to come around. Oh my goodness, I have an eyelash in there. Lord. All right. Happy I saw that drip. Make sure that comes out. All right, so that's it. That's it for this. I like where everything is. I'm out of time to mess with it, so I'm not even gonna force anything. What I will do next, after I pick my ink up off the floor, is clean up this bottom part. We took the time to clean up that edge, that bottom rim, and we don't want it to be all messy, so we can take a minute right now, put some rubbing alcohol on your rag, and as it's going in a circle, use your fingernail and just put it around. Again, this is if you don't do the bottom of your tumblers and you want to keep this clean. If you do the bottom of your tumblers, then add all of your normal colors to the bottom of it and keep that design going throughout the bottom of the tumbler. But I don't do that, so I'm gonna go around and clean that up. And I see one spot that has some paint on here. Where's my acetone? So I can clean that up too while I'm at it. There we go. That was a gold spot. Where's white? There's white. Okay, there we go. That's it for this. This last coat has set, and what I'm going to do is I have my wet or dry sandpaper, and I went over a whole video of sanding and what I use and when. So this is the Imperial wet or dry sandpaper. What grit was this? 400, I think. Does it say it? Yes, 400. And I wet it. That way it kind of controls the dust and you get a smoother sand. So what I'm going to do now, I have spots around my rim that's a little rough because I didn't sand this all that great. I did a kind of a light sanding over it before I did all of my inks to make sure that that layer of epoxy would adhere. But I didn't really sand around my rim too much because I didn't want to scuff up that glitter. But since it has another layer, I can go ahead and clean that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sandpaper, press my hand on and let it kind of overlap the sides just a little and just run it in a circle. And just kind of just twist back and forth. This will give you that nice smooth spot all around the rim. And since we went ahead and sanded that top, the epoxy and all of my glitters are pulled off that line a bit. Hopefully you can see it. Are pulled off that line a bit. That way everything adheres nice back to the tumbler. So I'm going to do the top, wrap my hands around and do the bottom. And then I'm going to go through the whole thing and just kind of sand it again. I hate doing this right here. I like doing this outside. But wet sandpaper kind of controls the dust a little more. So we'll do it right here for now. All right, the other thing is I'm just doing a light sand. You will have a little of this color, these inks and micas sand off because you're right on the surface. You're right where we dropped these. But I want to make sure this next layer of epoxy is going to adhere really good. So I do a light sand just enough to make sure everything wants to stick to it. Doing this won't knock off all the color because it's mixed in with the epoxy, but the top layer that you're sanding, you will get some color removed. So we're going to do this. We'll wash it off real good, and then we'll go with another coat. Another thing with using, I'll wipe it off here so you can see. Another thing with using speed dry epoxy, since it does set up quick in the way that I lay my inks, I do have a bit of a ripple feeling in this from where those inks, you can probably see it on an angle, from where those inks and micas kind of laid on top. But the next layer of epoxy, that is going to fill in all those crevices, and then once that cures, I'm going to go through and sand it really good and make sure that that it's all off. But you can see how it still left my waves. All of my fun little detail is still there. It just gives me a really good surface for everything to adhere to. So we're going to go wash this with Dawn dish soap and water and get another layer of epoxy on it. We have this cleaned up and we're going on with epoxy. So this is pretty much the last step. I only made this tumbler for the tutorial. It does not have a home, so I don't have a decal to put on it. I don't have anything in mind. What I would do is that there's a spot right here that's open where that blue didn't drop down as much as I would have liked. And I noticed it when I was working on it, but my epoxy was set and I couldn't do anything about it. So what I would do is if it needed a name, I would put a name vertically. I would put a name vertically and kind of cover that spot. And then on the other side, I would put a really pretty decal. And also, the vinyl that I would use would be a mirror, like a chrome mirror. Tech Wrap has an amazing one, and Nola sells it. So use that discount code Sippie10 and go save some money. But it's a really, really pretty vinyl. It's gold chrome. And then there's another good one that's a textured look. There's a really cool one that has like this wave look to it that I haven't tried yet, but man, that could be pretty too. So it would just get a decal. What I would do is finish this. Once this coat of epoxy sets, I would take it, sand it down and make sure everything is fresh and ready for a decal. I like to sand my tumblers before I get a decal on there because I find that it kind of adheres a little better. And it doesn't lift, so I always sand first. But that's it, guys. I'm gonna get the torch, make sure I pop any bubbles, and that's the end. So thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped. I am doing a massive 10,000 subscriber giveaway. We're somewhere around almost 8,000 right now. And this giveaway, if you want to get into tumblers, you want to be in this giveaway. And if you want to upgrade some things, you might want to be in this giveaway. I'm super, super excited about it. So please help spread the word. Get people to come over, subscribe to the channel, because once we hit 10,000, it is on, and I'm excited, and I already have some little goodies for it. So, and the box for this will probably be over $500 worth of goodies. So please subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to get a Sunset Beach one done next, because those colors is just so pretty, and I found the perfect combo. So that's it for this, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I will see y'all soon.